What if the family car sitting in your driveway was hiding a deadly flaw, one the manufacturer knew about all along? It sounds like the plot of a movie, but for decades, some of the biggest names in the auto industry have made cold, calculated decisions that put profits over people, with catastrophic results. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the most notorious cover-ups in automotive history, cases where corporate greed led to fatal decisions, and the recalls came far, far too late. So buckle up as we expose the shocking secrets the auto industry fought to keep buried. 1. The Ford Pinto and the price of a life. Our first story starts in the 1970s with a car designed to be America's answer to a wave of popular Japanese imports, the Ford Pinto. It was marketed as a small, affordable car for everyone, but it had a fatal secret baked right into its design. To save money and rush the car to production, engineers placed its fuel tank in an incredibly vulnerable spot, just inches from the rear bumper. Ford's own pre-production crash tests revealed the terrifying truth. In rear-end collisions at speeds as low as 20 miles per hour, the fuel tank could be punctured by bolts on the rear axle, causing the car to erupt in flames. To make matters worse, the car's body was so flimsy that collisions often jammed the doors shut, trapping people inside the burning vehicle. Ford knew exactly how to fix it. A simple plastic shield, costing just $11 per car, could have protected the fuel tank and saved lives. But Ford didn't install it. Instead, the company performed a chilling cost-benefit analysis, which later became infamous as the Pinto Memo. This internal document put a price tag on human life, calculating that paying out millions in wrongful death lawsuits would actually be cheaper than paying the $137 million it would cost to recall and fix the cars. The memo projected 180 burn deaths and 180 serious injuries, which the company valued at a total cost of just $49.5 million. The decision was made: profits over people. It wasn't until a bombshell expose in Mother Jones magazine revealed the memo that public outrage exploded. By then, it was too late. While official reports cited 27 deaths, other estimates suggest hundreds may have died due to the Pinto's fiery flaw before Ford was finally forced to recall 1.5 million vehicles in 1978. In the aftermath, Ford paid out hundreds of millions in lawsuits and became the first American corporation to be indicted on criminal homicide charges over a defective product. 2. General Motors' deadly ignition switch. You'd think the industry would learn, but decades later, another American auto giant, General Motors, was at the center of a scandal with the same chilling disregard for human life. This time, the flaw was tiny, but just as deadly. Starting in the early 2000s, millions of GM cars like the popular Chevy Cobalt and Saturn Ion were built with a faulty ignition switch. The problem was terrifyingly simple. The switch was so loose that a heavy keychain, a bumpy road, or even a driver's knee accidentally brushing against it could knock the key out of the on position. When that happened, the engine would instantly cut out. But that wasn't the worst part. It also disabled the power steering, power brakes, and most critically, the airbags. Drivers suddenly found themselves in a speeding metal box they couldn't steer, couldn't easily stop, and with zero airbag protection in a crash. And just like Ford, GM knew. Internal documents later revealed that the company was aware of the problem for more than a decade, and that a fix would have cost as little as 90 cents per car. The company even secretly redesigned the part in 2006, but didn't change the part number. A deliberate move to hide the change and make it almost impossible to track. Instead of a recall, GM sent out advisories telling dealers to just warn customers not to use heavy keychains. For years, families were left wondering what really caused their loved ones fatal accidents. It wasn't until 2014, after massive public pressure, that GM finally recalled millions of cars. The company ultimately admitted that its defective switch was linked to at least 124 deaths and more than 275 injuries. GM was hit with a $900 million fine to avoid criminal prosecution and had to set up a $625 million compensation fund for the victims. It had failed for over a decade. 3. The Takata airbag crisis, a global nightmare. This next scandal wasn't confined to one automaker. It was a global nightmare that became the largest and most complex automotive recall in history, affecting nearly every major car brand on the planet. This is the story of Takata, a Japanese parts supplier whose name became a synonym for danger. For years, Takata was a world leader in airbags, a device we all count on to save our lives. But inside more than 67 million vehicles in the US alone, those airbags were hiding a ticking time bomb. The flaw was in the chemical propellant used to inflate the airbag, ammonium nitrate. Takata discovered that long-term exposure to heat and humidity could make this chemical unstable. So when one of these defective airbags deployed in a crash, its metal inflator would explode with way too much force, turning the airbag into a shrapnel bomb that sprayed jagged metal fragments right at the driver and passengers. The first known rupture happened back in 2004, but the crisis didn't go public for years, with Takata being accused of manipulating test data to hide the failures. As of early 2025, these defective airbags have been linked to at least 28 deaths in the US and over 400 injuries worldwide. The injuries were horrific, causing blindness and deep cuts to the face and neck. The sheer scale of the recall was something the world had never seen, impacting dozens of brands and tens of millions of cars. Some older models, especially in humid climates, had so-called alpha inflators with up to a 50% chance of a catastrophic failure. The scandal ultimately bankrupted Takata and led to billions of dollars in fines, but even today, millions of cars with these deadly airbags are likely still on the road. 4. Toyota's runaway cars. Toyota built its entire reputation on two words: quality and reliability. That's what made the unintended acceleration scandal of 2009 and 2010 so utterly shocking. Reports started pouring in about Toyota and Lexus vehicles suddenly accelerating on their own, without the driver even touching the gas pedal. People found themselves fighting to control cars that were surging to dangerously high speeds, sometimes with heartbreaking results. One of the most horrifying incidents involved a California highway patrol officer and his family. Their Lexus sped out of control, hitting over 120 miles per hour before crashing and killing all 4 people inside. Initially, Toyota blamed the problem on driver error or floor mats that could get stuck on the accelerator. But as more reports came in, it became clear there was another, more sinister cause. A sticky pedal defect in the gas pedal assembly that could cause it to get stuck down. Worse, internal documents later showed that Toyota had known about these safety defects for years and had misled the public, even celebrating saving money by avoiding a bigger recall. Public outcry was enormous. After a massive investigation, Toyota was forced to recall over 8 million vehicles worldwide. The scandal was linked to at least 89 deaths and dozens of injuries. In a landmark settlement, Toyota admitted to misleading consumers and paid a stunning $1.2 billion criminal penalty, the largest of its kind at the time, to avoid prosecution. 5. Volkswagen's Dieselgate deception. Our final scandal is a different kind of beast. This wasn't about a mechanical flaw that could cause a crash, but a deliberate high-tech conspiracy to deceive regulators and the public on a global scale. In 2015, the world learned that Volkswagen, in its quest to become the world's biggest automaker, had been cheating on emissions tests for years. The scandal, nicknamed Dieselgate, involved a sophisticated piece of software called a defeat device, which was installed in about 11 million of its clean diesel cars worldwide. This software was smart. It could detect when a car was in a lab being tested and would switch on the full emissions controls to meet the legal standards. But as soon as the car was back on the open road, the software would turn the controls off. The result? These supposedly clean cars were pumping out nitrogen oxides, a toxic pollutant, at levels up to 40 times higher than the legal limit in the US. This wasn't an accident. It was fraud on an epic scale. Volkswagen had specifically marketed these cars to eco-conscious buyers, all while knowingly polluting the air far beyond what was allowed. When researchers at West Virginia University and the EPA exposed the deception, the fallout was catastrophic. VW's CEO resigned, its stock price collapsed, and the company faced a storm of legal battles. Today, Dieselgate has cost Volkswagen over $33 billion in fines, settlements, and buybacks. The company pleaded guilty to criminal charges and was forced to pivot its entire future toward electric vehicles to try and rebuild the trust it had so spectacularly destroyed. From an 11 part that could have prevented fiery deaths, to a few lines of code designed to poison the air we breathe, these stories reveal a deeply disturbing pattern. Time and again, some of the most trusted brands in the world were caught making a calculated choice: their profit margins over your life. These cover-ups are a grim reminder that without watchdogs and public accountability, the business of making cars can be a deadly one. Which of these scandals shocked you the most? And do you think these companies were held accountable enough? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation.